Hold on. Before you toss that handful of loose change into a jar or drop a dark, dirty penny into a vending machine, you need to stop and look closely at what you are actually holding. Every single day, thousands of people unknowingly spend old coins that could be worth a significant premium simply because those coins look worn, tarnished, or covered in dark spots. Most people assume that if a coin does not shine like it just left the mint, it belongs in the spare change pile. That assumption is one of the most expensive mistakes you can make. Experienced collectors do the exact opposite. They know that the oldest, dirtiest, most overlooked coins often hide the most incredible stories and the most astonishing value. When a seasoned numismatist sees a dark, naturally aged coin, they do not see a piece of trash. They see an authentic survivor of American history. Today, we are going to embark on an incredible journey through time, examining three specific, highly sought-after Lincoln flat pennies that you might just have sitting in a forgotten drawer, an old piggy bank, or an inherited collection. These are not just ordinary pieces of copper. They are artifacts that have traveled through world wars, economic booms, and decades of societal change. As we go through these three coins, I need you to remember one critical rule. Never, under any circumstances, clean your coins. We will explore exactly why cleaning destroys value, what specific details to look for, and why these three particular dates and mint marks have captivated the attention of advanced collectors across the globe. Grab your magnifying glass, make sure you have proper lighting, and prepare yourself because the pennies we are about to discuss could completely change the way you view pocket change forever. 1918, Lincoln Wheat Penny. Our journey begins in a year that defined the modern world. The year 1918 was a time of immense global turmoil and profound historical significance. World War I was raging across Europe, and the United States was deeply entrenched in the conflict, mobilizing its industries, its people, and its resources. At the exact same time, the globe was gripped by the devastating 1918 influenza pandemic. Amidst all of this chaos, sorrow, and transformation, the United States Mint continued its vital work, ensuring that the wheels of commerce kept turning. In Philadelphia, the massive coin presses struck millions of pennies, sending them out into a world that was changing faster than anyone could have imagined. Today, holding a 1918 Lincoln Wheat penny is like holding a tangible piece of that exact moment in time. When you pick up this coin, you are holding something that might have been used by a soldier returning from the Western Front, or by a family buying a daily newspaper to read the latest headlines about the armistice. Take a very close look at the obverse, or the front, of the coin. You will see the legendary profile of President Abraham Lincoln, originally designed by the sculptor Victor David Brenner in 1909. Lincoln faces to the right, displaying a look of quiet strength and dignity. Arching across the top rim is the national motto, "In God We Trust." To the left of Lincoln's portrait is the word liberty, and to the right, resting just above the slope of his chest, is the date 1918. Now, look directly beneath the date. You will notice a completely blank space. There is no letter there. To a beginner, this might look like a mistake, but seasoned collectors know immediately what this means. The absence of a mint mark indicates that this specific coin was struck at the main United States Mint facility in Philadelphia. During this era, the Philadelphia Mint did not use a mint mark on its pennies. This is the very first detail you must check. Turn the coin over to the reverse. This is the iconic design that gives the Lincoln Wheat penny its famous nickname. Two gracefully curving stalks of wheat frame the left and right sides of the coin, symbolizing the vast agricultural wealth and enduring strength of the American heartland. Arching across the top edge is the traditional Latin phrase, e pluribus unum, meaning out of many, one. In the dead center, struck in large, bold letters, is the denomination 1 cent. And just below that, United States of America. Every single letter and every grain of wheat on this reverse was engineered to perfection. The physical specifications of the 1918 Lincoln Wheat penny are crucial for authentication. The coin was struck on a bronze planchet composed of 95% copper and 5% tin and zinc. It possesses a standard diameter of 19.05 millimeters, a thickness of approximately 1.52 millimeters, and an official weight of 3.11 grams. The edge of the coin is completely plain and smooth. Because copper is a highly reactive metal, a coin that has survived since 1918 has been exposed to over a century of oxygen, moisture, human skin oils in various environments. This exposure naturally causes the copper to oxidize, creating a protective layer called a patina. This is why most 1918 wheat pennies you find today will be a deep chocolate brown, dark mahogany, or even nearly black. You might also see patches of green verdigris, which is a natural form of copper corrosion. This brings us to the most vital lesson in numismatics. When you see a dark, dirty 1918 Lincoln wheat penny, your first instinct might be to grab a cloth, some baking soda, or a chemical polish and scrub it until it shines like a brand new penny. You must absolutely resist this urge. Cleaning a coin permanently strips away its natural patina and inflicts thousands of microscopic scratches across the surface. Once the original surface is gone, it can never, ever be brought back. Experienced collectors despise clean coins. They want to see the honest wear, the natural toning, and the authentic history embedded in the metal. An uncleaned original coin with honest circulation wear will almost always command a higher premium and greater respect than a coin that has been artificially shined. The value of the 1918 Lincoln wheat penny is entirely dependent on its state of preservation, evaluated on the internationally recognized Sheldon grading scale, which runs from 1 to 70. Most examples found in old jars are heavily worn, grading somewhere between good 4 and fine 12. On these coins, the wheat lines on the reverse are mostly worn smooth, and Lincoln's hair details are flat. These heavily circulated examples carry a modest premium, but their true value lies in their history. However, as you move up the grading scale into the about uncirculated and mint state levels, the surviving population of these coins plummets drastically. Remember, these coins were heavily used in daily commerce. Finding one that escapes circulation entirely is incredibly difficult. When professional grading services evaluate a mint state copper coin, they also assign a color designation: brown, red-brown, or red. A 1918 penny graded mint, State 65 red is a true numismatic treasure. These elite survivors boast their original, blazing mint luster, a brilliant orange-red color, and a remarkably sharp strike where every strand of Lincoln's hair and every individual line in the wheat stalks is perfectly crisp. When coins of this caliber cross the auction block, they can realize astonishing prices, sometimes reaching into the thousands of dollars, as advanced registry set collectors engage in fierce bidding wars to acquire the absolute finest known examples. Beyond condition, collectors also meticulously inspect 1918 pennies for mint errors. While major dramatic errors from this year are scarce, specialists use strong magnification to hunt for double dies, die cracks, and minor planche flaws that can add significant intrigue and value. The 1918 Philadelphia issue may seem common at a glance, but finding one with pristine originality and exceptional eye appeal is an exceedingly rare event that keeps the thrill of the hunt alive for collectors everywhere. 1944, D. Lincoln wheat penny. We now move forward in time to a completely different era of American history, bringing us to a coin that represents ingenuity, wartime sacrifice, and a massive metallurgical shift. The year is 1944. The United States is locked in the most devastating global conflict in human history, World War II. American troops are fighting across Europe and the Pacific, and the entire domestic economy has been repurposed to support the war effort. The previous year, in 1943, the United States Mint had made the radical decision to strike pennies out of zinc-coated steel to save copper for ammunition and military wiring. Those steel pennies were highly unusual, but they proved unpopular with the public as they easily rusted and were frequently mistaken for dimes. So in 1944, the mint needed to return to a copper-based penny, but copper was still heavily rationed. The solution to this problem resulted in one of the most fascinating compositions in American coinage history. The military provided the mint with massive quantities of spent brass artillery shell casings recovered from military training facilities. The mint melted down these shell casings, added a small amount of pure copper to adjust the alloy, and created a new planche material. This unique wartime alloy consisted of 95% copper and 5% zinc, completely eliminating the tin that was usually present in the standard bronze formula. When you hold a 1944D Lincoln Wheat penny, you are literally holding a piece of recycled World War II military history. You are holding the remnants of the very ammunition that trained the soldiers who fought for global freedom. Let us carefully examine the details of this extraordinary coin. On the obverse, Victor David Brenner's classic portrait of Abraham Lincoln remains proudly in the center. The word liberty is on the left, and in God we trust arcs above. To the right of Lincoln, you will see the date, 1944. Now look very closely beneath that date. You are looking for a small, distinct letter D. This mint mark is incredibly important. It signifies that this specific coin was struck at the United States Mint facility in Denver, Colorado. The Denver Mint operated at a frantic pace during the war, striking hundreds of millions of these shell casing pennies to keep up with the booming wartime economy. On the reverse, the familiar and beloved wheat stalks frame the coin, embracing the words 1 cent in United States of America, with E pluribus unum across the top. Because of the slightly different alloy, the 1944D Lincoln Wheat penny often exhibits a very subtle difference in color when it is in uncirculated condition, sometimes displaying a slightly more brassy or yellow-orange tint compared to the standard bronze pennies of earlier decades. The coin retains the standard specifications of a 19.05 millimeter diameter, a plain edge, and a weight of 3.17 grams. Because the Denver Mint produced an enormous quantity of these coins, over 430 million of them, the 1944D is not considered a rare date in absolute terms. You can still occasionally find them in circulation today. However, the sheer volume of production means that the quality of the strike can vary wildly. Some coins were struck with fresh, sharp dies, resulting in breathtaking detail, while others were struck with heavily worn dies, leaving Lincoln's portrait looking soft and mushy, especially around the hair and jawline. This variance in strike quality is exactly why experienced collectors spend hours peering through magnifying loupes, searching for the perfect specimen. Condition and originality are everything when it comes to determining the value of a 1944D Lincoln Wheat penny. A circulated example in good or fine condition, displaying dark brown toning and significant wear on the wheat lines, is a fantastic historical keepsake, but carries a relatively low financial premium. The true excitement happens in the upper echelons of the mint state grades. A 1944D graded MS66 or MS67 with a full red color designation is a sight to behold. These coins display swirling, unbroken cartwheel luster that dances across the surface when tilted in the light. Because these coins were made from shell casings, they were highly susceptible to spotting and uneven toning over the decades. Therefore, finding a flawless, spot-free, blazing red example is incredibly difficult. When these top-tier graded coins appear in major numismatic auctions, they command massive attention and aggressive bidding from collectors trying to build the ultimate wartime set. But the story of the 1944D does not end with perfect condition. This specific date and mint mark is notorious for a highly prized variety that collectors obsessively hunt for: the D over S repunched mint mark. During the die preparation process, an engraver at the mint initially punched an S mint mark, intended for the San Francisco Mint, into the die. Realizing the mistake, the engraver then punched a D directly over the S. If you look at the D mint mark under a high-powered microscope or a jeweler's loupe, and you see the distinct underlying curves of an S protruding from the edges of the D, you have found a major numismatic prize. This variety is extremely popular and adds a massive premium to the coin, regardless of its condition. Once again, the golden rule of collecting applies heavily here. If you find a 1944D Lincoln Wheat penny, especially one that looks dark, oxidized, or dirty, do not clean it. The chemical reaction of copper and zinc over 80 years creates a stable surface. If you attempt to polish a shell casing penny, you will not only destroy its numismatic value, but you will also give it a horrific, unnatural, streaky shine that screams of tampering to any experienced eye. If you think you have a high-grade example or a D over S variety, carefully place the coin into an inert, non-PVC mylar flip, holding it only by the very edges to prevent the oils from your fingers from etching into the copper. The 1944D is a masterpiece of wartime resilience, and its true value reveals itself only to those who possess the patience to look closely and the wisdom to preserve it exactly as it is. 1956, Lincoln Wheat Penny. Finally, we arrive at the third coin in our deep dive, transporting us to the vibrant, booming era of mid-century America. The year is 1956. World War II is a memory, the Korean War has ended, and the United States is in the midst of an unprecedented economic expansion. Dwight D. Eisenhower is in the White House. Televisions are broadcasting in millions of homes. Rock and roll is sweeping the nation, and the new interstate highway system is being constructed. The country is moving fast, and cash is flowing freely. It is within this atmosphere of prosperity and optimism that the 1956 Lincoln Wheat Penny was produced. What makes the 1956 penny so poignant and highly sought after by serious collectors is its position in the timeline of American coinage. By 1956, the iconic wheat reverse design had been circulating since 1909. It was a beloved symbol, but the winds of change were blowing. Unbeknownst to the millions of people spending these pennies on candy, gasoline, and jukeboxes, the wheat design was nearing its absolute end. Just 2 years later, in 1958, the United States Mint would retire the wheat stalks forever, replacing them with the Lincoln Memorial design in 1959 to commemorate the 150th anniversary of Lincoln's birth. Therefore, the 1956 Lincoln Wheat Penny is viewed as a twilight coin, one of the final glorious issues of a legendary era. Let us scrutinize the surfaces of this coin. On the obverse, the portrait of Abraham Lincoln is crisp and familiar, with "In God We Trust" above and "Liberty" to the left. To the right is the date, 1956. Look directly under the date. If the space is blank, with no mint mark, you hold a coin struck at the Philadelphia Mint. During this post-war boom, the Philadelphia Mint was churning out pennies at a staggering rate to keep up with the demands of the booming economy, producing well over 420 million of them. Turn the coin over and you see the classic wheat stalks, E pluribus unum, 1 cent in the United States of America. By this point in the series, the mint had reverted to the traditional bronze alloy of 95% copper and 5% tin and zinc, giving the 1956 penny that classic rich copper tone that we all recognize. The weight remains 3.111 grams, and the diameter remains 19.05 millimeters. Because production numbers were so massive, and because the coin was produced relatively late in the series, it is incredibly common to find circulated 1956 pennies today. Many people inherited these in jars from their grandparents or find them in rolls of modern pocket change. When an amateur sees a 1956 penny, they often dismiss it as too new to be valuable and too common to be rare. This is exactly where the amateur misses the opportunity of a lifetime and where the expert collector swoops in. While a circulated 1956 Lincoln Wheat Penny in brown condition is worth only a few cents over face value, a perfectly preserved, flawlessly struck 1956 penny is an entirely different story. Because the mint was producing these coins so rapidly, the quality control often slipped. The dies would clash together, they would crack, and they would become heavily polished, resulting in coins that lack sharp details. Finding a 1956 Philadelphia penny that features a booming, fully struck portrait of Lincoln, with every single wheat line sharply defined on the reverse, and absolutely flawless, blinding original red luster, is an incredible challenge. When collectors build high-end registry sets of the late wheat penny years, they refuse to settle for average coins. They hunt for coins graded MS66, MS67, and in extremely rare cases, MS67+. These virtually perfect specimens, encapsulated by professional grading services, are fiercely contested at auction. The difference in value between an MS65 red and an MS67 red can be the difference between a few dollars and hundreds or even thousands of dollars. It is a game of microscopic perfection. Furthermore, the 1956 Lincoln Wheat Penny is famous among era collectors for a specific and fascinating anomaly known as the BIE error. As the obverse dies deteriorated from striking millions of coins, small cracks would form in the steel. One of the most common places for a die crack to develop was right in the middle of the word liberty, specifically between the letters B and E. When the coin was struck, the copper would flow into this crack, creating a raised vertical line that looks exactly like a capital letter I. Thus, the word appears to read liberty. This BIE error is highly collectible and has a dedicated following of specialists who try to collect every known variation of the die break. If you have a 1956 penny, you must get a magnifying glass and look closely at the word liberty. If you see that extra raised line, you have a highly desirable variety in your hands. There are also instances of repunched dates and minor double dies on the 1956 issues. The sheer volume of coins struck meant that human error in the die preparation room was inevitable. The only way to find these hidden treasures is to slow down, ensure you have strong, angled lighting, and meticulously scan the surface of the coin. This brings us back, for the final time, to the most critical mandate of coin collecting. Never clean your coins. A 1956 Lincoln wheat penny that has been sitting in a paper envelope or a wooden drawer for 60 years might have developed a spectacular rainbow-hued toning or a deep, rich chocolate brown surface. This natural patina is beautiful to collectors. If you take a polishing cloth to it, you will instantly strip away its history, leaving it with a harsh, artificial glare that ruins its numismatic appeal. The finest coins in the world are those that have been left completely alone, untouched by harsh chemicals or abrasives. If you happen to find a 1956 penny that looks brand new or one that has an interesting error, your only job is to protect it. Handle it only by the edges. Place it into a protective holder. Keep it away from high humidity and extreme temperature changes. These three coins, the 1918, the 1944D, and the 1956, are so much more than mere pocket change. They are metallic time capsules, each bearing the scars, the alloys, and the stories of the eras in which they were born. The next time you find a dark, dirty, or seemingly ordinary Lincoln wheat penny, do not just toss it away. Take a breath, pull out your magnifier, and look closely. You might just be holding a piece of history that collectors have been desperately searching for.